What is up, guys? It's Dan the Man, and today I'm back with round 2 of the August Action Championship Tournament held here at Chess Zone. And after getting a rather lucky clutch draw in round 1 against underrated opponent Arturo Imberno, who's 2100 FIDE, but only 1700 USCF. So he was a fairly new player. I lost the exchange in the middle game, and I fought for the draw in the end. So that was the summary of what happened, and we enter with a draw again going into round 2. And I'm paired against a kid named Jairaj Desai. Hopefully I said that close to right, who's around 1857 at the time of the tournament. And I haven't played him before, but I've seen him around quite a lot, and I knew he was a regular at Chess Zone, and I would one day probably end up playing him, and that day was at the time of the tournament. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the action here. So I start with e4, as always. He goes into the Sicilian with c5, knight f3, g6. He's playing the dragon variation, which is a bit of a more reserved opening at the start, but later, often in these positions, black gets a very strong dark squared bishop on g7, and it can lead to some very attacking games, often in the dragon. Both sides castle the other way, so they don't castle the same way, and it can lead to some very sharp tactical positions. So maybe that will happen in this game. But he's allowing me to control the center for now, so I go ahead and seize it with d4, and we get a quick trade. And after that, he plays the move knight to c6, knight to c3, bishop to g7, and the main move is to defend the knight with bishop to e3. Now here I thought Jairaj has to go d6 to prevent my pawn from ever going up to e5, which is still a book move, but knight f6 is also one of the most commonly played moves. But since I don't really play Sicilian myself that much, I don't really know as much of the theory as a Sicilian player like Jairaj would. So I thought this was a slight inaccuracy because he lets me take on c6, and d takes c6 allows the queens to come off and he can't castle. So b takes c6 is essentially forced. And then the thing about d6 is he would have prevented me from playing e5, but because that move wasn't played, I get to kick the knight away with e5. And he doesn't really have too many options with his knight. He can't go to the edge because g4 would trap the knight on the board, and knight d5 would just hang a pawn, so he's forced to undevelop the knight. And I thought I was already having a pretty big opening advantage here because, I forced his knight back, I have an advanced pawn, and soon I'm going to get all my pieces out and castle. That was my thought process. But I notice he's attacking my pawn, so I defend it with bishop to d4 with 57 minutes. And the main move here is to play queen a5 to attack the pawn again and just add some pressure on the queen side. But here he played the move c5, which at first to me looked like he was just trying to lure my bishop away from defending the pawn. And I thought if bishop takes c5, he would play the move bishop takes e5. But while he was thinking, I analyzed that move wasn't good, because he lets me play the move queen d5, which is just a simple fork on the bishop and the rook. And the engine suggests some weird way to not lose a bunch of material. One line could be he could trade off the bishop right away, and after taking, the natural move would be to play rook b8. But if you were to play rook b8, all of a sudden queen e5 happens, and both of your rooks are forked, so that wouldn't be no bueno. But here he can play the move queen a5, offering the rook on a8, but going for some queenside counterplay, because if I were to take, he could take on c3, and now it matters where you move your king. The natural move is king to e2. The most natural move would be king to e2, so the rook wouldn't be taken with check, but I'll explain why that move is bad. King d1 is the good move. And I know what you're thinking. You're allowing black to take the rook with check. What are you doing? But after king to d2, you'll notice that I'm threatening queen takes bishop checkmate. Black has no good checks, and he has to do something about queen takes c8. In fact, he can't really do anything. He actually has to, just give up the bishop on the back rank. So if you were to, let's say, go and defend the bishop, then I can play this move bishop to a6, and the point of playing king d1 and not king to e2 was that if my king were on e2, the king would block the bishop from going to a6, so that is why king d1 was more correct. But did Jairaj consider that line? No. Did I consider that line? No. In fact, Jairaj in the game played the move queen to c7. He realized taking was wrong, and this is actually the best move. And here I realize he's going to win the pawn back, so I play bishop d4, and he goes ahead and takes on e5. Now I notice here that his bishop's kind of pinned to the rook, and if you were to ever take my bishop, I would get my queen out and be very happy and prepared to castle long. So that makes me play f4, because he can't take the pawn because his rook would hang, and he has to either take my bishop or play bishop to f6, and he decides to take on d4. And after queen takes, again, I'm very happy because my queen is on a very good square, his rook is hit, and I'm prepared to castle long and have a great position. But Jairaj can play this move knight f6, and even though the engine judges the position as roughly equal, I thought I was doing really well here. Now, I was thinking about adding some pressure to the knight with moves like knight d5, because he can't ever take my knight because he would hang his rook on h8, so I felt like I was adding pressure to his pinned piece. But if I were to play knight d5, I noticed that he can just throw in this check, and he's forking the king and the knight, so I'm essentially forced to go back. And then Jairaj could always just go back, and we'd be in this position twice, so I wouldn't be making any progress. Now, if I were to play the move knight to e4, I stop defending f4, and Jairaj can play queen takes f4 and be fine here as well. So I don't do it right away. I instead play the move long castles, which was my entire point of developing the queen, so I could play long castles and get an active position that way. Here Jairaj castled kingside, and here I played the move f5. I'm looking to start an attack. I'm trying to maybe open the king side a little bit. And here Jairaj played a move that I was just utterly shocked that he played it after a few minutes of thought. It was not a move on my radar, and it just looks so counterintuitive, and I really don't understand why he did it. He played g takes f5, which is just inviting his king to get checkmated. His king is now on an open g file, doubled pawns in front of the king, and I feel like he's just giving me all sorts of opportunities to attack in the future. I was very perplexed that he played this move, but at the same time, it's not like there's a knockout blow, and there's not a move that just ends the game on the spot. And here I played the move rook to d3 with the idea to try to rook lift, which apparently isn't great. Jairaj apparently can just develop his bishop to b7 and ignore the check. But here he gets scared by the check and plays the move f4, very natural move to prevent my rook from going there. But here I play the move knight d5, and my idea with knight d5 is that my knight is aiming at a lot of things in black's territory. It's aiming at the queen, the knight on f6, the pawn on e7, the knight on f4. That knight is just a monster, and it can't stay there. So you have to get rid of my knight. But by doing so, I'm attacking a rook now. I have access to queen g5 check, which wouldn't have been possible if the pawn hadn't taken an f5. So now I'm having an avenue of attack because the king is now open. And yeah, as I mentioned, I'm hitting the rook. And again, Jairaj should play the move bishop to b7 and be only slightly worse. But here he plays rook b8, allowing me to go queen g5 check. And he has to go to the corner. And then I thought for a second I could, go for a checkmate with queen h6 to attack his rook, and then play rook h3. Seems very unstoppable, very scary threat. But Jairaj can play bishop b7, connecting his rooks, and if I were to go rook h3, trying to go for mate, Jairaj can defend and attack at the same time with bishop to e4, threatening a mate on c2, defending my mate on h7, and now he's the one that's putting the pressure on. So I just play the obvious move. I just take the pawn on e7, and now his position is starting to fall apart because his rook is hanging, queen f6 is coming, I can potentially play bishop d3 and aim at h7. His position is just terrible here. So queen takes e7 on the board, and here he played the move bishop to a6, and that just throws more of the makes my advantage grow for many reasons. I play queen f6 check, and at the very least I'm forking his king and bishop. So after the king moved to g8, the first move I was thinking about is just taking the bishop right away, which is fine. I mean, I'd still be winning, but there's a very common proverb in chess, and that is, if you see a good move, look for a better one. I believe world champion Emmanuel Lasker or someone like that said that. Very wise quote. Or maybe it was Alekhine. I don't know. It's just a common phrase in chess now. But you could take the bishop, but I scanned further in the position, and I played the move rook d5, threatening to play rook g5 checkmate. And he can't ever move his bishop away to prevent that, so I can always take the bishop next turn, because he has to deal with the more important threat of checkmate. So here he played the move rook on f to c8, which, in my opinion, was a very smart move, because he's giving his king some room to escape, and also he's threatening a mate on c2. So if I were to play some lazy move like c3, then, I have to waste a move stopping checkmate, and black can, defend or not be as worse anymore. So that was the point of rook f8. But I noticed that I can force the game to end, essentially. I played the move rook g5 check. Jairaj has to go to f8. And then I played the move queen h8 check. And in this position, Jairaj resigned the game because I'm assuming he saw the continuation. Because if the game had continued, Jairaj would have to go to e7. And I would play the move rook e5 check. And he has to sack his queen to keep the game going, because if he were to go to d6, this is just mate in 1. So that was a possible way the game could have finished. He could have walked in the checkmate, or he could have sacked his queen and then been down a ton of material. So, we get a pretty chill game in round 2. If we take a look at the accuracy here, I played a very great game, 96.7 accuracy. Jairaj played at 80.8. So, this game was pretty smooth sailing for us. But the main mistake for Jairaj here, in my opinion, was g takes f5. Even though the engine didn't consider it a mistake, it just contributed to his downfall in the game. So that's the main reason. But other than that, it was a pretty solid game for both of us. And we go into round 3 with the score of 1.5 out of 2. And I'll show you guys round 3 soon, as well as round 4, so stay tuned for those. And if you like content like this, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought of the game. And have a great rest of your day or night. Bye.